WCC weekly recap for Gonzaga Nation SI. I'm Dan Dickau. Got a lot of results that solidified the conference standings over the past couple days. I'm going to touch on those really quick, update the standings, kind of break down the WCC tournament bracket a little bit. We'll have a more in-depth tournament bracket coming in a few days. But what a regular season in the WCC. So unbelievable to see, throughout most of the regular season, four teams being talked about as possible NCAA tournament teams. I think there's three. I think BYU has some work to do in the WCC conference tournament if they're going to go ahead and stay in that conversation. But as of now, how I see it, Jew's a lock, St. Mary's is a lock. I really think that San Francisco, when you look at all their analytics, top 25 in both net and KenPom, as well as what's, I think, more important is the eye test and how they looked at against Gonzaga on Thursday night. Yes, they lost to Gonzaga, but they looked really good. They looked like an NCAA tournament team. So quickly to recap Saturday's games, BYU knocked off Pepperdine 75-59 in senior night. So Alex Barcelo will no longer suit up at the Marriott Center. But they were led by freshman Traore, 25 points and 19 rebounds. Talk about a tremendous effort. That's something that they can build on from him moving into the WCC tournament, as well as moving into the offseason and next year. Sounds like it looks like a great piece for Mark Pope. So BYU finishes the regular season at 9-6. Pepperdine finishes it at a not as expected 1-15. Had some roster shakeups with some grad transfers that didn't work. Had some injuries, but have some young talent. We'll have to see how they improve over the next couple of years for Lorenzo Romar. Next game on Saturday, LMU beating the Pacific Tigers. Wraps up the first regular season for Leonard Perry as a head coach in the WCC in the second year for Stan Johnson. I think both of them had some difficult times this year, although I do like the progress of both teams. When you look at it, I think they were both impacted with COVID and cancellations a little bit, but they both showed some bright spots, in particular Pacific when they knocked off BYU. But LMU finishes the regular season at 3-12, and Pacific ends the season at 3-11. Santa Clara knocks off the Portland Pilots 102-89. Joseph Vrankic, what a game. 30 points, 4 rebounds, 7 assists for the big man, the senior. That allows Santa Clara to finish at 10-5. The Pilots, the biggest surprise maybe in league, at 7-7. But Santa Clara, with the decision that the WCC has made to follow tiebreaker percentage rules through KenPom, Santa Clara will be the 3 seed in the conference tournament in Vegas. That'll start in a few days. Go up to USF. They go on the road and knock off USD, who also had an unexpectedly nice year. But USF, the Dons, after playing well against Gonzaga for extended stretches, they finish up the regular season with a 78-62 win against the Toreros. Bouye, 14 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. So the Dons finish at 10-6. And as mentioned, upstart Toreros finished at 7-9. And we'll touch on why it's important, the seeding and the slotting of the standings in the regular season and how that pertains to the WCC tournament. But the big shocker for a lot of people would be Gonzaga after the big win against San Francisco. Goes to Moraga, plays St. Mary's, and St. Mary's gets off to a terrific start. Gonzaga never led the whole game. St. Mary's ends up coming away with a 67-57 win over Gonzaga. Tommy Kuzi, 14 points in that one. He was the guy who really kept his foot on the gas when it needed to be for St. Mary's, and he kept it on the throttle when it needed to be to make sure they didn't play out of their comfort zone, out of their pace. A really good job by Tommy Kuzi in just controlling and dictating the game, the tempo, the speed that game was going to be played at. When you look at defensively, St. Mary's got it done. Terrific game plan. Nothing was easy for Gonzaga. And that's what you would expect with a good ball club like St. Mary's, but also two coaches that have coached against each other for 20 years now. Randy Bennett, Mark Few know each other extremely well. Strengths, weaknesses, what other teams struggle with at times, and how to force and influence them into those situations. But Gonzaga only 37% from the field in that game, 14 turnovers, 5 of 15 from three. But I think the most interesting thing was Gonzaga was never able to get kind of any type of flow or pace offensively where their guards could get downhill, make plays for others, or get in pick and rolls and make plays for people in those settings, because Gonzaga's starting guards, the trio of guards, Nemhart, Bolton, Strother, one assist to 7 turnovers. That's an impressive job by Randy Bennett's St. Mary's Gales in getting that done. But that obviously moves them, the Gales, as we all kind of thought once we got in the meat of WCC play. They were second place at 12-3. Gonzaga at 13-1. Doesn't take in much away from Gonzaga's tremendous season up till now. Conference title, which is enormous. Number 1 ranking up until that game. But I don't think Gonzaga is going to slide. I don't think they're going to slip at all, which is interesting because the first time ever in the history of the polls, the AP poll in particular, the top 6 teams lost. The top 6 teams all lost. So I don't think Gonzaga is going to slide because they played a really good team in St. Mary's, who was ranked 23rd. I would imagine St. Mary's would probably creep up into the 18-19 range based on all the activity and shuffling during the week of play across the country. But let's take a quick glance at the WCC tournament, and we will take an in-depth dive later on this week on another episode of Gonzaga Nation SI. But we'll start it off where the bottom 4 teams have a long road to go if they're going to try to make an NCAA tournament. And I'll just be honest, it doesn't look like either of these 4 teams are playing for a NCAA tournament bid. I don't think either would be playing for an NIT or even a CBI invite. But LMU will play Pacific in the 8-9 game. USD will play Pepperdine in the 7-10 game. And essentially, because of the way the WCC is structured with the top 2 seeds, this year being Gonzaga and St. Mary's, getting double byes, it makes a very difficult road for the bottom 4 teams to even get to the semis. But it also even makes a difficult road for 5 and 6 to really get to the championship game because they're going to have to play 3 games in a short span. But in that second round, BYU would play the winner of LMU Pacific. The Portland Pilots would play the winner of USD Pepperdine in that second round. And then that would be played on the Saturday. Day off would be Sunday. And then the Monday, the second round, the Saturday would be the quarterfinals, where USF would then play the winner of University of Portland or the USD Pepperdine. So USF would play BYU, LMU, or Pacific is how that would work out. So USF in the quarterfinals would play BYU, LMU, or Pacific. Santa Clara in the other quarterfinals would play UP, the Portland Pilots, USD, or Pepperdine. So that would be the quarterfinals. And then in the semifinals, GU and St. Mary's getting that automatic double bye directly into the semifinals, which was done a number of years ago to protect the top seeds in the West Coast Conference, because say they play against a Ken Palm 295 team that surprise game in the first round, they would take a hit many times in the Ken Palm. They would take a hit in the net ratings. And what if by chance there was an upstart that knocked off GU or St. Mary's, that could have awful ramifications for the league, because it's so important that the league gets as many teams that can advance in the NCAA tournament as possible. And I think, quite frankly, I think this year they've got 3 teams that can win a game in the NCAA tournament. GU, obviously, national title contender. St. Mary's, I think, is second weekend good enough. And then I think USF is good enough to win a game as well. But they still have a little bit of work to do to get there. So in the semifinals, Gonzaga would be playing San Francisco's side of the bracket. So they would be playing San Francisco, BYU, LMU, or Pacific, while on the other side of the bracket, St. Mary's would be playing Santa Clara, UP, USD, or Pepperdine. But to get there, there's still lots of basketball, lots of work to be done. It's always an interesting week of preparation and relaxation for the WCC, because they have a long gap now before the conference tournament begins, especially for Gonzaga. And then they've got one of the longer gaps between finishing their conference tournament and moving on and beginning the NCAA tournament. I think that's always boded well for Gonzaga to really kind of focus in on themselves and do a lot of skill work. If there's any nicks and bruises, heal up those small injuries leading into the NCAA tournament as well. So for Gonzaga Nation SI, I'm Dan Dickau, your host on WCC Weekly.